I'm just completely discombobulated this week.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so very, very much for coming. As you know, we're here to talk about the main point of what we're here to discuss is the opportunity for the creation of deeply affordable senior rental housing, and that is what we are looking to accomplish. But in order for us to be able to do that, we have to take specific steps, which start now, to help us get there. And if I'll just take a few minutes, we'll go through some slides. But I'd first like to introduce the panel to my left, the team that's been working very, very hard on this for many, many months, and very impressive. We have our town planner, Myron Toohill. We have our consultant, Judy Barrett. Tony works for, Tony is next to Judy, and Tony, I'm sorry, I forgot you. I forgot the last name. I'm sorry.
It's you.
Thank you. Okay. And we have our town council, Tom Harrington, assistant town administrator, and finance director, Ryan Ferreira. And assistant planner, we have Cooper Matthews. And also we have in the audience, we have three members of the select board: the chairman, Rambacher, vice chairwoman, Morrissey, and we also have Mr. DeCoste. Okay. But thank you very, very much. And let me start. Okay, here we go. The future of Littleton Town Offices and affordable housing. Okay, that was by you. That wasn't by me. Thank you, Myron. Okay, so we're going to have a little just take a little look at the history of the facilities here and what we can and what has transpired over the years. So as you can see, back in 1922 was the first of three areas of sections of the building that was built as a school. In 1922, which brings us to 103 years old. Next 16 years later, we had the middle portion, and where we are at this point also, it was the classroom multi-use wing in 1938. And finally, we have 14 years later, the library wing, which was, as you can see, the progression through the town, through the community, thought it was wise investments as time went on to invest in the library and the education. Thank you. Why does Littleton need a new town hall? Well, a 2017 architectural and space needs study, significant renovations are required here at 37 Shattuck Street to bring the building up to code and address structural deficiencies. Let's go through some of those deficiencies. Here we have some of the identified structural, operational, and code issues: roof and rainwater management, interior finishes. We have electrical and fire alarm systems, fire protection and plumbing, mechanical systems, exterior vertical enclosure, security, sustainability, wayfinding, directional signs. I just learned that, actually. Elevator, space use and comfort, roofing, exterior doors, exterior trim, exterior masonry, in windows. And let's talk about for one second, let's talk about the structural deficiencies here, the concerns that are going on. As you remember from one of the first slides, the first building is 103 years old, and the code compliance, the building compliance at those times is obviously was much different than it is today. The issues that came out in the report, the structural deficiencies, is this building, is the 1922 building and the 1938 building. the structural integrity of that. And basically, one of the things of the concerns was that integrity in regard to severe weather events. So basically, what would have to happen is any contract or what we would have to do if we wanted to rehabilitate the building, we would have to basically go back down to the brick, to the facade. And basically, the easiest way for me to explain it to you is to put a cage in here for that structural integrity, so the building has a better stability. And as you do that, you shrink your workspace in your area. So that's just one of the things that really came out. Next slide, please. Thank you. So let's look at what the town has done over the past few years with a plan of investing in other areas. Here, as you can see, in October of 2019, the authorization of the new Rubin Hall Library, the cost of $7.3 million, net of a $5.9 million state grant. And here you can see where the Parks and Recreation is right now. We've got the beautiful building in the back. Next, we have another jewel in this location. We've got the new center on Shattuck Street, which opening date is going to be just in about a little bit more than a month, which is an amazing, and I hope you've all been able to at least tour it so far. It's a fantastic facility. And that was at a cost of $18.5 million. Thank you. And finally, we had, in February 23, there was authorization at town meeting to purchase the building at 36 King Street for $3.5 million and a renovation cost of $3.4 million. So as you can see from when those three buildings that came into the first few slides, the plan has been that we're going to invest in other areas and we've done that. And as you can see from Parks and Recreation, the school administration will be moving out. The Council on Aging, EHS, will be obviously relocating, and the library has had a very successful few years that they have been open at this point. So next slide, please. Thank you. So this is, if you can, we're just going to take this a little slow. So as you can see, the needs assessment that was done by the architect. Here you can see it's the 3,494 gross square feet, and then that was the existing one that was done in 2021. The proposed is 5,700, and a future growth is about 7,000 square feet. Here we have, as you can see, the different apartments that we have located here.
Sorry, Jim, it's breaking up a little bit.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So as you can see, all the departments that really are still included in here, we have the finance department. Currently, the existing is 2,800 square feet with a growth potential of 6,800 square feet. The building department, 3,300, and then increasing to 5,300. The school department is 3,000 square feet, looking to expand to 4,400. Parks and Rec, 2,600 square feet, expanding to 23,000 because of, as you can see, with a gymnasium, the 6,800. Elder and Human Services, 6,800 square feet, expanding to 21,000, almost 22,000. LCTV, 3,000 square feet, and future growth would be 4,000 square feet. And then we've got different support services, restrooms, things of that nature. But now that we've made the investment over the years, we're going to eliminate, as you can see over here, you can see we're going to take out the school department, Parks and Recreation, Elder and Human Services, and because they are all moving 36 King Street and the center on Shattuck Street. So what that does it's a reduction of approximately 60% of the town offices here, of the square footage here, what we're doing. So the town invested in new renovated facilities at almost $33 million over the years, just recently. And the total square footage replacement estimate is about 67,000 square feet. And so the revised estimate would be almost 27,000 square feet for the offices that remain, which is a reduction of 60% before they moved. Next one, please.
Well, can I just ask, what's your denominator? Is it residents? What's that?
I'm sorry?
Oh.
Sorry about that.
What's your denominator? What is it? Residents in the town that's driving the growth? So, for example, finance department. You're expecting it needs to grow. Why does it need to grow?
Well, because as the community grows, we are looking at changing governance. We're looking at as the community is growing more and more. When we do that, it requires an expansion. So you just can't. There have been communities that have built brand new town offices that they just basically count the number of people that are there and then build a new building based upon the number. They don't factor in the growth. So as we do get a little larger and we do, and the services, we want to expand offering services to the community, it does require additional personnel. Okay, thank you. Okay, what's next? So here we are, we would do an RFP for town offices and senior housing. So what we would be doing is we would identify, through an RFP, it would help identify a new location for town offices. The select board would be able to tailor the RFP to the town's needs and put any conditions that they feel is in the best interest of the town.
What is RFP?
I'm sorry?
What is RFP?
Request for proposal. Okay? Good question. I'm sorry. I should have said that. So what we're looking at, and then part of the process in which, as the select board has been very vocal about, as transparent as possible, looking for community input, because the process in order to draft all those conditions of the request for a proposal will take a little while. It's not going to take overnight. Then we've got the plan to develop 40 to 60 units of deeply affordable senior rental units. Again, we absolutely, that would be within the same request for proposal. So there'd be one document looking for two things: the town offices, a location, and the specifics around that, and also looking at the town's needs for the senior affordable rental housing for the community. It would, the process would absolutely take feasibility study, architectural design, detailed site plan, permitting, in order to what's eligible for this kind of a project is financing through the state through low-income housing tax credits. And that's a very arduous, lengthy process that whoever the developer is that is selected by the town, they would go through that process. And the process, as I said, is extremely lengthy and it's extremely arduous. And the state, in receiving such an application, they're very critical on being tremendous detail to it, and the fact that they are dealing with an affordable developer for housing, developer of housing. They want to make sure that that person has the experience. There's many components: a management plan, all the permitting, all the design, everything is included. So that's a lengthy process. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to ask, actually, not yet. Next slide, I will. Sorry about that, Judy. New town hall and offices. We're looking at it, it's going to be owned by the, yes, sir, Mr. Ellis.
Thank you. The expansion that you're predicting for the town offices, is that based on the IBM property with the 1,200 apartments coming in? And is it based on the housing that's proposed out by the train station? Is that part of this whole growth picture, and is that what's driving this?
In regards to the expansion of the employees, the square footage and
Yes.
everything like that,
Yeah.
that's absolutely factored in.
Okay.
As I explained to the gentleman, we are growing, and those are great examples. Not only do you have the units at 550, but then you also have 10 Great Road.
Right.
And that's a concern. And to your point, at the MBTA, right down at the train station.
And my follow-up question is, knowing the demographics in town, you probably know them better than I do. Affordable senior housing, deeply discounted. What's the approximate number of seniors now living in the town that would even qualify for that?
Okay, so we're going to talk about thank you very much, Mr. Ellis. We're going to get into some of that data. Judy's going to talk about some data that has been researched, and we'll be able to share that in a minute. So the new town hall and offices, there were many questions or concerns that were raised of whether will the town own this, or are we going to be tenants or anything like that? We will, when it is the new town hall we move in, we will own it, the land and the building and everything like that. That will absolutely be a town offices. Meet the needs of serving our residents and businesses. It's going to be accessible for everybody. It's going to be timeline that makes financial sense. So the timeline, we are essentially, and I'll put it in a nutshell, we're going to be here for another 4 or 5 years. We're not moving next year. We're not moving after the town meeting vote. There is a process that's in place that's going to keep us focused and on point of moving forward. And through that RFP process, the request for proposal process, we're also going to make sure that we can afford to be able to make that move. And so we will be looking, and we're going to keep it within the levy. We're not going to go out and ask for a debt exclusion or an override or anything like that. That is what we're going to do. We're going to keep it. Any debt that we may have for this will be. We'll be able to pay for it within our levy. And in that request for proposal, when we are looking for a new building or a new location, the select board can they can say, just build us a shell with all the mechanicals in it, or build us a turnkey situation, and anything in between. But it all is driven by the town's input and the best interest of the town, but our main purpose is to start the process in order so this site can be deemed as a location for deeply affordable senior rental housing. That's what's driving this. Is our commitment? Is the select board and the town's commitment to doing that? And so I had mentioned earlier, we're going to remain here at 37 Shattuck Street until the town hall is ready for us to move in. And we are looking at 4 to 5 years before the moving vans pull up. So that is the approximate timeline we are looking at. And we're probably being conservative. Yes?
Yeah, one question, I guess I missed this, or where is the new building going to be?
Well, and that's a great question. So part of that request for proposal, we're asking developers, landowners to say, to come to us and say, I have a piece of land, I can build your deeply affordable senior housing, and I have a piece of land over here in Littleton that I can build you a new town hall according to your specifications. So that's still yet to be determined. Okay? Good question. Deeply, why don't we why don't we go with, I'm going to turn this over to Judy Barrett. And if you can please, and so Judy, that's not on?
I think it is on. I could hear my echo. So thank you, Jim. So we were asked to help the town look into, I think, exactly what your question was, which is what is the level of need for so-called deeply affordable housing. So I want to define that first of all for you, and then just share some of the information that we have to date, and then underscore that we're still working on this, so there may be additional information that we're going to be providing to the town between now and town meeting. So just bear that in mind. So the term deeply affordable housing in the housing world is generally housing that's affordable to households with incomes that are at or below what we call 60% of the area median income. Why do we use area instead of the towns? Because that is what the requirement is for any of these programs. So 60% of area median income is a number, and it's low, and it gets lower the more you depart from area median income. So when you look at this chart, you can see that for an extremely low income household, which is a household with very low income, at or like 30% of the median for the Boston metro area, those incomes limits are $35,000 to almost $40,000 for that level. And then the next tier up, which is 50% of median income, is close to 60 or close to 66 or 60, but depending upon the household size. So the income limits change based on the number of people in the household. So we're just giving you 1 and 2 person households because this housing, if developed, would be for seniors. So to your question that you asked a few minutes ago, we know now that within Littleton, there are at least 265 households that are at or below 30% of median income that are seniors. So, not surprising, I think, to any of you, the world is changing and there's an aging population just about everywhere. So we've looked at Littleton, and we've also looked just kind of at the communities around you to try to sort of ask, is Littleton an anomaly, or is it really part of a regional trend? And I don't think it's any surprise to see that what's happening here is happening elsewhere as well. So the senior population overall is growing. What this chart is showing you is that between 2010, which was the base year for this analysis of projections, up to 2050, you have essentially a doubling of the population in this age cohort, of which I am a member, by the way. The total population is going to nearly double over that time frame. But even within it, the mix of ages shifts. So what we know about Littleton in particular, based on available projections, is that the seniors who are 75 and over, that's the age group that's probably going to grow the most. And that is not dramatically inconsistent from what's happening in other communities as well. So this is just a kind of, here's what the projection looks like. That line, that chart that's on your left is showing the total growth in numbers of people, and these bar charts over here with the different colors are simply indicating of this over 65 age group, how many people are 65 to 70, 70 to 74, and so on. So you can see, and why does that matter? It matters to housing developers because if you're building for an over 75 population, that is very different from building for people who are 55 and over. Next slide, please. So the senior households, almost a quarter of the seniors, and for this purpose, I'm using the definition of 65 and over, about a quarter of them live alone. And this is another significant statistic because it affects how you size the units that you're producing. It affects really what the incomes are of the population that you're trying to serve. So about a quarter live alone, and that's what that donut chart shows over on the left, the 23% there. That's how many people live alone who are 65 and over. 84% of those people are women, which is probably no surprise to anybody in this room. And the number of households that are 75 and over are projected to more than double in this community by 2040. So, you have a situation where you have a lot of households that are one-person households, which tend to have very low incomes, which you will see momentarily. They are growing, and you do not have housing stock that is affordable at this level. Not rental units affordable at this level. You don't have it here. So the question begs, what happens to people who are single women, who tend to be widows, who have fixed incomes? Where do they go? Next slide, please. So this just kind of shows what senior household incomes look like, and relative to other age groups. So the orangey kind of bar is households that are 25 to 44, the so-called peak, earnings years. And then the 45 to 64-year-olds are the purplish band, and then everybody else is 65 and over. So you can see how incomes change as people age. Clearly, the lowest incomes in this mix are households 65 and over. Next slide, please.
So where are these people living now?
They're unaffordably housed. We have people we do a lot of this work, and in every community we work in, there are people who are trying to stay in their community who don't really have the money to live where they are, but they don't necessarily have choices to go somewhere else. So you end up making sacrifices. You sacrifice health care, you sacrifice food, you sacrifice other living expenses to stay in your home. That's who we're talking about. This chart is simply a comparison of women 65 and over living alone. What's the median income for this group? And this is the towns kind of around you, plus you, and you're that darkest color band. Your women 65 and over living alone have significantly lower incomes than many of the other communities around you. Now, I'm not going to say that anybody who's represented in this chart has high incomes, but you tend to have particularly lower income 65 and over living alone. And that's kind of the target for deeply affordable housing. Next slide, please. So there's a concept in housing called housing cost burden. And what we mean by that is if a household is having to spend more than 30% of their monthly income on housing, they are considered to be housing cost burden. They're paying more for housing than they can afford. This becomes the group that makes sacrifices in other ways so that they can stay in their home. So the lightest color band up here is sort of people who are not cost burdened. They are able to essentially afford where they live, which means they're spending less than 30% of their income every month on housing. Okay. This is elderly households.
I can't afford where I live in.
Okay.
Taxes have gone up.
So this is elderly households by whether they live in homeownership or rental units. Among renters, you have significant levels of cost burden as you go the darker colors on this chart. But your homeowners tend to not be quite as unaffordably housed, but your people who are trying to rent are. So there's an insufficiency of rental stock here for people who are in those lowest income senior bands. That's who is being discussed in terms of deeply affordable senior housing. Next slide, please.
Can I ask
I can try to answer.
Okay. I understand that there are lots of, or not enough rental properties for seniors, but I don't remember what you said the numbers were in Littleton.
Okay.
But of those single women, elderly single women who are living by themselves, are they living in a house that doesn't have a mortgage? Because what I understand is if they sell their house to move into, then they're not going to be able to move into the affordable housing because their assets are too much.
So I can address that. I was
Okay.
hoping this question would come up.
Good.
So if I sold my home and I wanted to purchase a unit that was age restricted, an age restricted condominium, for example, my eligibility to buy that unit would depend in part on how much I have in assets. So I sell my home, I get some money, it can throw me over the eligibility to buy a home. It's different with rental. With rental eligibility, you may have assets that are not counted as income, and they don't, because asset isn't counted for rental eligibility. What is counted is if I have an asset that generates some income, I sell my home and I put all the money in the savings bank, a savings account. The interest that is generated by that asset does count toward my income, but not the asset itself. So rental is very different, and it's important to understand that. We have seen in many communities we work in, home ownership units created for people who are 55 and over, and they sell their home, and they are ineligible because the value of the asset's too high. But with rental, it's different. What matters is what is the asset generating or capable of generating as income, interest earnings, things of that nature. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay, you're welcome.
Thank you, Linda. Now we're going to, last couple slides, we're going to turn it over to our town council, Tom Harrington, and to go through the next two slides.
Oh, yeah. Good idea if you can have that, right?
Evening, everybody. Tom Harrington, Town Council. Always fun to follow Judy because she delivers all the super interesting information, and I'll tell you a lot. Okay, so what we need to understand about this slide is, am I going?
Yeah. Yeah.
Trying again. What we need to understand about this slide, still not working. How about now? Okay. So what we need to understand about this slide is this is the slide that's going to help us accomplish what we want to accomplish here. So to take a step back, there are very specific rules that a town needs to follow when it buys something or when it sells something. There are also very specific rules that a town needs to follow when it builds something. And they're two different sets of rules. So for instance, if we were just talking about a new town hall here, we would use one set of laws to identify the land and buy it. We would use another set of laws to design the building and construct it. But because in this instance, we want to sell this parcel, but stay here, we want to identify a parcel to buy and have a town hall constructed there, but we won't be moving there for about 4 years. It becomes too difficult to do that. It becomes too difficult to do that using one set of laws or the other. So what we're doing is we're going to the state and we're explaining to them what we're going to do. We want to put this property for sale. We want to construct deeply affordable senior rental housing here. Simultaneously, we want to identify a piece of land or a building that would become our town hall and then would be constructed to serve as our town hall. Because that's a very complicated process and the two are linked, we need this special permission to do it in a way that's affordable and that allows the town to dictate the terms. The town wants a finger in this process to make sure that this building gets constructed as deeply affordable senior rental housing in a way that we want it constructed. We don't want to just leave it to someone. We want to be able to follow the process. Simultaneously, we want to have input into the construction of town hall, tell them how to design it, how we want it laid out, and how we expect it to operate. That's all a fairly complex process, tying the two together. The special act gives us permission to do that, and it says we do not need to comply with any of those laws. The law we need to comply with is prevailing wage. So what that means is that we will guarantee that the Workers on the job get paid a fair wage as determined by the state. That's the process.
So would you mind just taking one step back? And what I don't understand is the RFP is both the town offices and elderly housing. Why are those two things together? Like when we did the new library, you know, we built the new library, then we moved into the new library, vacating space. So can someone explain why these two projects are in the same RFP and we're not doing two RFPs?
Sure. And we haven't decided what we're going to do yet, but let's assume it is going to be a single RFP. Under the construction laws and the procurement laws, which are the laws to buy and to sell, we could not do that. We could not do the two properties without likely violating one law or the other, because the two laws don't work together. They expect a separate process. So you use the example of the library. We had the land, so we identified the parcel where we're going to build the library. We then did our feasibility study, we did our design, and then we constructed it. Those are all the processes that one must follow when following the construction laws. It would be, I think, too difficult to do that in this instance by issuing one, because the two are linked. We need a town hall to go to before we can vacate this property. But we know that whoever we identify as our partner in this will need to have control of this property for at least a couple of years, because the permitting process and their ability to get the necessary tax breaks and tax credits it's a long rollout. It's a 2 to 3 year rollout, Judy?
Yeah, at least, yeah.
2 to 3 year, or maybe a little more rollout. So we need to identify someone that we can work with in both instances, and we need to give them the time to do the things that they need to do to be able to construct what we want constructed here, and to be able to construct what we want constructed as our town hall.
I don't object to affordable senior housing. I think that's definitely something we need. Why are we getting rid of this building? Why can't the town offices stay in this building? I think, you know, we have the library, we have the center. The idea was the center would be around. I mean, I come here and I pay my taxes. I take out a library book, and soon maybe I'll go to a program at the senior center. Why are we getting rid of this building? It's functional and if they need more space, most of the space user-uppers are leaving. And as far as affordable housing goes, why did we have the mill? Why do we have the IBM building? Why did we buy the land by the train station? Wasn't that for affordable housing for people? I mean, why are we making this more complicated and adding more stuff on?
Thank you. So if I can, you talked about affordable housing. So the affordable housing versus the deeply affordable senior rental housing are two separate things, both of which the Commonwealth has expressed time and time again, there's a tremendous shortage. And as Judy had pointed out, the population is aging. We are looking and to help our Littleton residents do that. We are, as you saw from the first few slides, from the needs, from the space assessment and the needs assessment of the building. The building is of all those, and those are hitting the highlights. The cost of redoing this in order to stay here. Now, for the town offices, because what do you suggest we do with the 1922 portion of the 1956, I believe, 52 wing, if we're going to stay in the middle? Do we mothball those? I mean, there is a need for the senior affordable housing, hence, and this would be a great location for it. And that's been a discussion for a few years, I believe.
It's more complicated more expensive to do all this other stuff.
Well, there is an investment. Absolutely, there's an investment moving forward. And we, as a town, as any community, looks to make investments in their town buildings, in their offices. And I believe we've been here since 1970?
No,
No?
1995.
Thank you. Okay, 1995. So there are areas there are space needs. There are different things. But the main purpose why we're standing here is to create the senior affordable rental housing. If that wasn't on the table, I'm sorry? Okay, I'm sorry.
So you have a lovely presentation. Great that you're showing the old years of when these pieces were built and when they were worked in. But, few things. This building has been updated to put this town hall in here because it was at the fire station. And I know that for a fact. One, I've only lived here for 40 years, so I'm a shortcomer. But my children went to daycare here. And they got kicked out to put the town hall here.
Okay.
Library was not here. It was part of the school building. Library moved here after the town hall. I don't even remember what year, but my mother-in-law worked there. So, again, my opinion, and I'm feeling like we're being duped by using the word deeply affordable housing for seniors, because watching the select board's meeting on March 24th, you cannot guarantee that that's for Littleton people.
I'm gonna let Judy answer this one.
So that is true, you can't guarantee. What the town does have the right to do is set aside up to 70% of the units on a preferential basis for Littleton residents who are income eligible. That is true.
Okay. So the other part that I feel like we're being duped on is your RFP.
Okay.
You know, and it was mentioned on the March 24th meeting, you know who wants to buy this building. And you're going to set that RFP up for them. 550 King and 410 Great Road will have affordable housing. It might not say deeply, and that's what's going to affect everybody here, is the word deeply. And everybody wants affordable housing. But I know, me being closer to that 65 mark, that I want to stay in my own home. I don't want to pay more taxes, but my taxes actually went up by $600 this year, which is insane. We need to we're rebuilding Shaker Lane for $100 million. Highway Department needs a new highway garage. And I think there was something else that was coming up, but, pardon me?
Park and Rec's gonna.
Well, the Park and Rec building is Indian Hill Arts, which you are going to have plenty of room in this building. And the upgrades can be done in this building within the same amount of time and with the same amount of money that you're putting away, that I heard the finance say they were putting away so that we would have it and wouldn't have to go over our levy. But instead, we're getting the scare tactic that we have to do this now so that it can go through the legislature, because it's going to take at least a year. And we know that the person who wants to buy this has to go through another program. Well, he's already been told that he needs affordable housing. It's not deeply, but it's still affordable housing. So why are we allowing that person to buy this building so that he doesn't have to put it at 550 King or 410 Great Road? Thank you.
First of all,
Sorry. Excuse me. And just so everybody has a basis, my husband worked for the Highway Department for over 35 years. Plowing is a problem. If this becomes housing with public building, library, and senior center here, who does that plowing? Who is going to plow this? And where are all the cars going to be parked? Mrs. Toohill said, Well, we're hoping that they won't have many cars. I applaud that, but I know you know different, Myron, that there will be cars. 40 units, there's going to be at least one car per unit. You're not going to tell me any different because most people have at least one car. That's not going to fit out here. And if there's a project going on at the library and the senior center, there isn't going to be any parking. Or we're going to lose the ball field, which again is another issue for the town of Littleton. Ball fields are an issue. So, thank you.
Hi. Do I have to tell you where I live? Is this one of those meetings? No? All right. Amy Tarla Lewis, and I'm at Omega Way in Littleton. And so I'm not really sure where the best entry point on this one is. So I totally agree. Senior housing, we have a housing crisis across the country, 100%, for not just seniors, but for people who are graduating from college, people in their 30s who are still living with their parents, are still renting, who want to buy a house. Everyone is in a housing crisis. People who have housing are in a crisis because everything costs more, and it's not going to get any better anytime soon. So when the market closed last Friday, we lost $6.6 trillion of wealth by one person's doing. We have crazy people running our country. People are selling, companies abroad are selling American stocks. They are not investing in cash or bonds. They are taking their money back to Europe and Asia. People don't want to invest here. We have tariffs that are going to drive small businesses out of business. We have people like myself who will not be buying things because we will not be able to afford them because of one person's, stupidity, right? We have someone who put probably in a large language model, like, what's the formula for applying tariffs across the world, right? The math doesn't even work for them, right? And they are lying to the American public about what is going to happen and how the math works and how the economy works. And we are on our way into a world recession and a recession here. It's not going to bring back jobs because we have technology. It's not the manufacturing of the 1930s, or the 1940s, or the 1950s anymore. So we are operating in this bigger system that you seem to be ignoring. We have, and correct me if I'm wrong, we have alumni field that we're still paying for. We have the library we're still paying for. We have the senior center that we're certainly more paying for because it hasn't even opened up. We approved something for Park and Rec for them to improve the playing fields. We have a sewer project that is completely overrun in cost and budget. And now you're asking us, putting the housing aside, to fund a new town hall. We can't. The purpose of local government is to make our lives better. And by pushing forward the school project, which I agree, I understand Shaker Lane has a lot of needs. I put my 2 kids through there. They both had IEPs. They were squished into small rooms. I had a son who was bouncing off the walls and probably made the other kids and the teachers miserable. I understand the pains that they're having, but your job is to help us, and you're not. You're just pushing more stuff on us. If you were to you may be able to fund this in the levy. I don't care. I don't want to have to pay for it amongst all the other things that I'm already paying for. I moved here in 2024, and I'm funding thousands of dollars worth of projects in tax money. And my kids are in high school. They're going to college. I can't afford to fix things in my own home. I bought our house, when my husband and I bought our house, it was 2004. It was brand new. There's things that we need to fix, and I can't afford it because I'm paying for everything else in the town. Enough. Stay put. And we all know it's going to be Sal Napoli, who, you know, like, that you're going to write the RFP for. And quite frankly, I don't trust the town in the RFP process. As a member of the Orchard Committee, like, you guys didn't follow your own RFP. Like, you changed the dates to accommodate Jonathan so that you could, like, play out all your strategies. Like, I don't trust you guys anymore. I certainly don't trust the administration, and I don't trust you guys. And people are, like, heading into crisis, and now you're like, let's do this thing. No more. We're on a break. We're on a spending break. Enough.
Mr. Moderator, I normally get up and talk about but I put what I wanted to say in writing to make sure you get it, and if you want a copy of it, I can give you a copy of it. My statement here is about Article 12 and Article 13 for the town meeting, which we're talking about here tonight, for May the 6th. It is the opinion of this voter that Article 12 and 13 should be deleted from the warrant for May 6th and be deferred to November 2025 town meeting. It is my opinion that these articles are being rushed and the town has no protection in hand from the developer. I support what the town is wanting to do, but not by letting the town be in an unprotected situation. We must ensure to the voters and the taxpayers that our dealings are in order if the town of Littleton must ever go to court after giving the developer the town hall or a piece of land for deep, favorable senior housing. Here my reason, and it's 2 through 7 on what I have in my hand. The town of Littleton, this is my opinion, the town of Littleton needs 2 contracts in hand from the developer, Sal, before the voters vote for Article 12 and 13. The first contract from the developer Sal shall consist of A, designating where the new town hall will be built at 550 or 584 King Street. B, what will be the start date to build the new town hall? C, what will be the square footage size of this new town hall shell? D is to list the name of the commodities that the town requires to be built within the shell. E, on about what date will the developer deliver the town hall shell to the town for completion? The second contract will be from the developer Sal shall consist of the developer shall agree with the town of Littleton to allow the town to remain in 37 Shattuck Street Town Hall building at a cost of $1 annual rent cost until the new town hall at 550 or 584, or it could be a combined of the two there, but at King Street is ready to be occupied by the town of Littleton office. That B, the town of Littleton agrees with the developer Sal to continue maintaining the town hall building at 37 Shattuck Street and pay for its utilities and minimum maintenance upkeep during the rental period until the new town hall is ready. Option, the town can use the town hall at 37 Shattuck Street or the town or a piece of town-owned land to build the deep, affordable senior housing. However, both contracts must be in hand, and all parties are in agreement before the voters vote for these two articles. Both contracts can be a part of the RFP. I am further convinced that the town of Littleton should use the next 6.5 months collaborating with the developer and working out these two contracts that the developer and the town are willing to sign and include in the RFP. Believe me when I say I don't take these articles lightly. I also believe that the due diligence is lacking at this time in having court protection for the voters and taxpayers in place before these articles are voted on. The last item, my suggestion on the town meeting floor will be to ask the voters to vote no on these articles. Thank you.
Could I respond to that?
Please.
So Tom Harrington, responding to Mr. Sanders' comments. And Mr. Sanders, you and I have a similar list. So as I've been thinking about this deal, I've come up with, not unlike the list you have, of what I want to see in order for this deal to go forward. The difference is we cannot put two contracts before anyone without the special legislation. We will have violated either procurement or construction laws. And the second, we cannot even engage in discussions until we get approval on Article 13, which is that's the article that asks the town to authorize the select board to seek a buyer for this building. It doesn't mean we're going to sell the building immediately, but we can't even engage in the discussions until they have that permission. It is illegal for them to market this property for sale without town meeting's approval. So I share a lot of your ideas. Maybe someday we'll have Harrington and Sanders law firm. But we can't get there without an affirmative vote, without a yes vote on 12 and a yes vote on 13.
Here's what my question is.
Can you, microphone, sir? Please.
My question is this. You're asking the voters to vote for something, to give something away, to authorize the select board to sell, but they don't have any protection in hand when they do that. I have a problem when we're not protecting the taxpayers in something of this nation, in this nature, whereas that I understand what they have to have in place for the legislature to say to give the go light on this. And what I heard from you, if you can correct me, was that the select board is not going to do anything in terms of selling this, but having a prospect of someone that will buy this property, so that you have the three elements, the two developers, and you have the nonprofit organization that's going to run it once it's built. Where do we, as taxpayers, where do we have the support that if we approve Article 12 and authorize the select board to sell this building, I would feel better if it was a land parcel versus this building. But where do we have the protection that the select board is not going to go forward and do something, and we have no recourse at that time to do anything as taxpayers?
So I guess it's a great question, and I'd respond this way. This process, right, the two contract process, I don't know why I can't. This two contract process, it won't, assume we need money to do something, right? Yep, trying again. Assume we need money to do something. We're not appropriating any money. So before we move forward with this and put some money into this deal, we need to go back to town meeting. So this is not the only time we're going to come before town meeting to discuss this. If you think about it, this gives us the ability to, one, avoid complex and expensive construction and procurement laws, and it gives the select board the ability to begin to strategize and talking to developers and landowners out in the town about how this process might work. But until we get those two things, we can't do anything. We can't sell this, and we can't begin to look look to where we might go. So I hope the comfort here is that this is just a planning vote. The money vote is going to come, and you'll have the opportunity to vote that up or down.
Well, when you said the money vote, what money are you specific talking about? Because we're talking about at this time now, we're talking about that if we do get a shell there, it's going to be within levy. So my concern right now, what money are you talking about coming back
So
to the town meeting?
it's within levy, but it's likely not free.
Well,
right?
well, my
And if it is free, kudos to them.
But my point again is that the taxpayers still, once we give this away, okay, what control do we have on the select board to hold them from going forth and selling it? We have none, right?
Well, selling it without getting someplace to go?
Right.
So yeah, I guess that's, but they wouldn't do that, Mr. Sanders, right? So they're not going to sell this if they don't have someplace to go. That's, right?
Well, I would hope that would be the case, but if you give away and then you don't have anything, I mean, we're without a town hall.
If you give it away and don't have anything,
Yeah, sell it to Sal for
But-
$1. I'm saying,
Right.
once they sell it, we don't have a town hall.
right, but that's not the plan that's being presented.
Well, only thing I can say is that, from what I'm hearing is that we need to give away before and then wait and see what's going to happen. And that really is not the way we should do business.
Respectfully, it's not giving it away. It's giving them the authority to start looking at deals, but it's not giving it away.
But that's what you claim it. I say yes.
Hi, I have 3 quick questions. I'll just give you all, and then you can answer them. The first is, I think Judy did a really good job explaining the data behind, and Tony, around the need for elderly housing. I have still a lot of questions about the initial survey or RFP that was done in 2021 by LBB Architects. Is that a public document that, as a townsperson, we can review the RFI and the RFP that commissioned that report?
That report's up on the website.
Excellent. Okay.
So, yeah, no, it's public document, and that's where we pull the
All
information
right.
from.
My second question is, you mentioned a large list of sort of concerns regarding this building that appears to be what you're concerned about is if you did a renovation, you'd trigger modern codes, but you're currently grandfathered under existing codes, and some of those things appear to be maintenance related. So my question is, if this building, or you were to destroy this building and build a new building that would be offering deeply affordable elderly housing, what would be your maintenance plan, since if you are below market in all of your rents, who is going to pay for upkeep and maintenance? Because in a traditional rental situation, you know, the landlord is getting a premium, allows them to reinvest and maintain the maintenance. And then related to that question is, this building is under grandfathered codes. Are there any immediate structural concerns or public health concerns with the continued use of this building, under the assumption if you didn't renovate it, you wouldn't trigger like the new HERES 2 rating or the new ADA codes? They're all grandfathered in. Thank you.
I'm going to try to answer that question about how do you then maintain what you've built. The only program that exists today that could support deeply affordable rental housing development, as we are describing it, is a program called the Low Income Housing Tax Credits Program, which actually came out of the Reagan years. And it is a highly regulated program because people who are relying on these tax credits, if the project is not built properly, if it's not maintained properly, then they may be in trouble with the IRS. So it tends to be a very regulated program. The way that tax credits work is that they reduce what the developer has to borrow. So the operating costs of the facility come down to a level that those deeply affordable rents will cover. I don't know if this is making sense, but you know, a typical rental pro forma, you're absolutely right. The developer's got to figure out, am I going to get enough rent to cover my operating costs? Well, when it's housing for people who really have very low incomes, that number is hard. And so the tax credits, the investment of equity from people who depend on the tax credits, is what brings the total borrowing down and makes that possible. So anybody reviewing a project that's requesting low-income housing tax credits is looking at that. Do you have enough in here for capital reserve? Do you have an operating reserve? How are you covering the cost of running this project? And the only way to answer the question is because I've got to have these tax credits. So that's kind of how it works. And also, typically in these developments, there will be an allocation not only of the tax credits, but a subsidy source that essentially provides operating revenue as well. That's sort of, it's part of the tax credits gift, if you will. You get your tax credits for equity, but then there's an allocation also of operating revenue, because some people may live in this development whose incomes are at like 20% of area median income. So their rent is going to be essentially de minimis, right? So I don't know if I'm answering your question, but it's a heavily regulated project.
You totally answered my question. It just kind of raises my concern even more, right? So it's legislation that can be repealed. That's the first thing. And then the second thing.
Doge.
What's that?
Doge.
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 It's legislation that could be repealed. And then number two is, you I think, just wonder about the fact that, like, if we're experiencing record high inflation, right? So if you're building a building and you're expecting that you're going to have self-fulfilling capital, right? Because you don't need to put the roof on in year one, you're going to put the roof on in year 25. But that roof is going to be exponentially more. So you have to figure out
That's right, you do.
that source to actually beat inflation.
You absolutely do.
So Judy, if I
Yeah.
could just ask,
Sure.
yeah, can you clarify?
Help me
please?
out.
We won't own this. It's not our,
Yes, but
If
our
that's
elderly
how it
people
is,
will
it's
be.
not our problem.
Right, and what
They're
I don't
renting.
want to have happen
So-
is that we fund this.
So we won't own the deeply affordable housing.
the developer is going to own the deeply affordable housing. So whether the federal program of tax credits is sufficient for a developer to be able to make a profit on deeply affordable housing or not is fortunately not something any of us have to concern ourselves with, because the market's going to tell the developer whether they can do that. Developers aren't in the business of building things they can't afford. So, the market will determine whether there's somebody who can take this job on.
I totally believe that, except my concern is that as a taxpayer and a resident of Littleton, I have to basically make a decision with my vote, and what I don't want to see us do is make a decision and maybe put a whole bunch of folks who are elderly in jeopardy, right? Because they're low income, they're in a building they can't get out of, there isn't affordable because you're off market. And if that developer doesn't maintain their sort of social contracts to maintain that building, I feel there's some responsibility in the initial launch of a program like this. That's all I'm saying.
And it's a fair question, and all I can tell you is that part of the review of an application is, do these developers know what they're doing? Have they actually set aside enough? Does their operating pro forma assume an annual set aside toward that capital reserve, capital reserve? Because I am going to have to deal with a roof. I am going to have to deal with whatever. And there are projects that don't make it through the review process because they're unrealistic. So that's why having a partner that knows what they're doing is so important. I can't answer the question about all these uncertainties we're living with. I totally get it. All I can talk about is how the program works.
And then my third question about the town codes. So the building, there's public safety concerns with this structure? No?
Well, there were concerns that were outlined in the LLP, so.
Yeah, 100%.
Right.
But those concerns are in part because if you start a renovation, you trigger a new building code. So you're currently grandfathered. You have major structural concerns with this building as it exists today.
That's right. So, we are, once you start getting into and doing, to be able to redo this building, and let's point out, this is not one building. It's three buildings in three separate pieces, and Jim outlined that there before. But when you start with any renovation, then you need to bring it up to code. So that means meeting the stretch code, energy code, everything else associated with it. So
Necessarily right. There's a percentage. 30. Over a 5-year period.
30%.
yeah, right. But I think, Chuck, but to be able to do this project to the standard that we would want to, we'd be well over that 30%.
That's what he's asking.
Okay, but basically, what were you asking then?
Well, no, I'm just trying to weigh my options and make a smart decision. And so, part of it is you're looking for potentially funding for this project, and then there's also the possibility that you could grandfather certain building rules or delay Hearst 2 ratings or things like that to make better use of the existing building. I think it's unfair to say that the building doesn't meet code because it's grandfathering code. It doesn't meet code if you do major renovations.
Right, and I think it's sort of a chicken and egg thing where you say that to be able to do the things that were outlined in the earlier slide, you have elevators that can't fit a gurney. You have, inefficient systems, and one of the bigger concerns is the vulnerability of the 1922 wing and the 1938 wing to, seismic issues, wind issues. It's just it wasn't built to the kind of standards that that concern us. Is the building going to fall down tomorrow? No, but it is something that, when we look at, we have to take that into mind in terms of evaluating when we go and move forward.
I wanted to say that the affordable housing low-income tax credits include not only new construction, but also rehabilitation. So everyone should be aware of that. Also, there are historical rehabilitation tax credits that can also be used, which hasn't been mentioned. So we shouldn't take rehabilitation off the table at this point. Thanks.
Jim. But they can also, Madam Chair, those historic tax credits can also be applied towards new construction also. So, so it's versatile. Okay, perfect. Yes, sir.
I just want to kind of close out what we were talking about as far as the 30% kicker over 5 years if we do renovations, all that kind of stuff. And I also wanted to I mean, I was here when LLB came in and did a space needs study, and it wasn't the best study, and we've said that publicly. But I mean, I spent many nights in this building, and I don't remember ever talking about seismic wind activity or anything like that relative to that report.
Hi, so we're really talking about Section 8 housing, correct? Where an individual who meets the income thresholds gets a voucher to be able to move into Section 8 housing, which is what we have on down on Mill Pond, with Mill Pond Apartments.
So Section 8 is a program that, as you said, provides a voucher to a household that can then kind of go out and rent in the market, a privately owned unit. This is the affordability of low-income housing tax credits is because the tax credits bring down what the developer has to borrow. Therefore, you increase the possibility that the low rents paid by the tenants can actually carry the building because you're not carrying a lot of debt.
So the tax credit is only benefit to the builder.
Yes, the developer, because it's the developer, pardon me?
To go forward.
Yeah, the project doesn't go forward without the tax credits, so it is
Okay,
the.
so Sal, I don't think needs a discount. He has plenty of wealth. And you don't have to sell this building to put in affordable housing in this town. And can someone tell me how many times we have brought projects to the town and talked about affordable housing and how we needed to stay below the 10% threshold, and how many times we argued that these units needed to stay in perpetuity, and then they all weren't in perpetuity, and then like the project that was down by Nagog Pond, the developer sold it, obviously, to make some money, because that's what developers do, and then they were no longer affordable. I know people who were living there and had to move because they could no longer afford to live in their affordable apartment. We have been down this road so many times. The town has not really committed to affordable housing to young people or people my age, a young 51, and people who are seniors. We continue to not really seize the opportunity and force the developer to keep those units affordable in perpetuity. We haven't. So I kind of just don't believe this. Yeah, I just, and just, I'm sure I have something else to say, but I can't think about it at the moment. But with everything that's happening at the federal unit level, I'm not even really sure these tax credits are going to be here. We're talking about closing Social Security offices, so there are people in parts of this country that will have to travel 2, 3, 5, 6 hours to get to a Social Security office. Right? We're talking about cuts to Medicaid and Medicare to fund billionaires so they can get a tax credit. And so you're doing this project in this bigger ecosystem, and this is not the right time, right? We have Brooke Rollins, who heads the USDA, who is shutting off food programs like the local food purchasing program, which allows nonprofits like Boston Area Food Gleaners in Acton to purchase food from local farms and then give it to the people who need it the most. And she said those programs are no longer necessary. Apparently, feeding people who have no food, who have poor nutrition, and poor access to nutritious calories is no longer important. This is where we're at. This is not the time for this project.
So just to be clear, the tax credits aren't a TIF or anything that Littleton is doing. They're the state in the federal government.
It's the
that's
federal
doing it.
government.
Right. So, and the project, the land will be deed restricted effectively through this, so it will be in perpetuity, not from us, but from the state federal government's requirement. It's not
It's
the tax credits. We might, the Affordable Housing Trust might help contribute to make the thing more, make the project go forward, but the town's not in, just to be clear, that, you know, it's not us giving the tax break for
Correct.
this. It's not the town helping Sal or anyone else with this. It's the federal government supporting a low-income project.
Yeah, exactly. And I would suggest that through the local permitting process, the development won't occur without affordability in perpetuity, the same as all of the rest of our affordable units. Except the advantage we have here is the ability to support deeply affordable units.
So my other question for the town is, and I really want an answer. Apparently, you know, the Department of Education is no longer going to exist, and so those federal dollars will go away. So how are we going to make up the federal dollars that this town receives to run our school system, and how much is that deficit, and who's going to pay for it? Like, do you know? How much money are we losing from the federal government? You don't know. And how are we going to meet the needs of kids with special needs? How are we going to pay for the kids who are out of district, like mine? How are we going to pay for the kids who need speech and language services? Who is going to pay for the neuropsych testing? Who's going to pay for the language therapy? Who's going to pay for it? It's going to be us.
As you know, all of the budget decisions go to town meeting floor.
You can say that, but you want to do this project within this bigger ecosystem, and Chuck, you can't even tell me what the deficit is. Like, and I appreciate, like, you don't have to have all the numbers to hand, but no one seems to know. I've seen nothing on Littleton's moms, you know, like.
I can at least speak right now in terms of the impacts. There haven't been any material impacts on the education side.
Yet.
But
We're going to lose like billions of dollars to the state, and he's after Massachusetts.
Just trying to answer your question, that's all.
Do you know the number? The deficit that we're going to?
No, I don't.
Speculatively, is that what you're asking? How much federal money we get currently?
Mm-hmm.
The school committee meets tomorrow night, I'm sure you could ask Superintendent Clenching, he would know that off the top of his head.
I'm sure he would. We need that information as part of this decision-making.
Tough night, Mr. Moderator. I have a question. My question is this, and I will address it to you, Mr. Moderator. Since this came up and the select board and your department have been working on this, we can come up with a parcel of land and accomplish the same thing. Is that right? You can ask your town council. We don't have to use this building here. We can come up with a piece of land that we could develop and put in deep affordable senior housing. Is that correct?
So over the last several years, we have done searches for property and have not come up with anything that's on town sewer in a vicinity that's near other services.
But I know the town have millions of dollars of land. My question is,
Yes, we have.
whether or not the search has been made to look at a parcel that we could do with instead of using the town hall building.
Yes, the answer is yes. We have done the parcel by parcel review of town-owned properties.
And there's nothing that the town has that you can put housing on. Is that what you're telling me?
That's correct.
Well, that's hard to believe, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Sanders. Oh, no. Okay. Thank you. This is part of the permitting process in which it was at 550 King Street. It's the developer there, and let me just say that when the proposals, the RFP is specifically written with would be written with all the conditions, and whether it's the owner of 550 King Street or it's someone else, if they bring forward the ability to create the senior affordable housing here and build us a town hall, it's absolutely going to be taken seriously. So, that's what we're trying to do here. So for us to go to determine what another piece of town land is to build the senior affordable housing, that is not what our role is here. And we have the opportunity to be able to partner with a developer, whoever he or she may be, to create that senior affordable housing. And if it's here, absolutely fantastic. It just seems the conversation has been going on for a few years.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. But I ain't said nothing when anybody else got up 3 or 4 or 5 times to talk. So why are you saying something to me? Made me forget what I was going to say.
George,
I'll step back and
George, can I ask? I'll answer your question on the housing. I sit on the Affordable Housing Trust as well as on the Select Board, and the Affordable Housing Trust has looked into building more units. We're currently exploring it. I think we just signed a contract the other day for a duplex down on Tohotawan Road that was part of the Brown property. We are exploring what to do with the Durkee Farmhouse, where we can put in other units. The problem is, to do something for this deeply affordable, or for the tax credits, you have to build at least basically 40 units. And there's too few properties that would be available to the town that are on the sewer system that would make it feasible. This is the only property really that the town owns that's on the sewer system that would be feasible for this. Now, if the sewer system expanded and covered more of the town, we'd have more opportunity. But until it does, there's really limited places where we could build this and make it work.
But by you saying it, and I appreciate that, we're not looking at the affordable housing based on the bylaw that we passed. That developer has X number of years and develop a certain amount in the town before you start counting in the phases of what he built, how much he should have in hand. So I'm hoping that the sewer is going to expand in the town of Littleton here. But my point was that I was going to make a comment.
So the developers are required to build, by the planning board, they're required to build, I believe it's 10% affordable. It's not this deeply affordable, it's more like 80% AMI usually, not this 30 to 60%. So they're required, the planning board holds them to that. That they're not required, it's phased in slightly so that they don't have to do all the affordable up front. That's still required of Lapoli when he does the development. Even if he does this is something extra on his permit. He's still doing the little a affordable, if you will, the 80%.
Okay, what I wanted to say, Mr. Moderator, was that there are a lot of people in this town that's not for giving up this building. Thank you.
Rob Rounds, 25 Juniper Road. So thanks, I've learned a lot already, but I'm still what I feel is woefully ignorant with matters like this. And so, easy question, bear with me for a moment. Are all the language for the articles for the upcoming meeting, are they already written, or can they be changed up through the time of the next select board meeting?
So the articles are written, but at town meeting, we can amend the language in the articles as long as it remains within the four corners, which is the term we use, of the article. So you can propose a change at town meeting if that's what you'd like to do. Right.
Using that protocol. Okay. So I think you've already heard from many of the people how people are paying attention. And yet the point that I'll make is I counted 28 people here 20 minutes ago. We're down almost 10. And yet we're going to have probably, 300, 400, 500 people who won't have heard any of this. And all they'll hear is what they read and the 10-minute presentation. Way too little.
It's their fault because they didn't come.
Okay, I'd argue, but let me just stay on track. Where I'm trying to go here is, I'd like the essence of the question. If you go to Article 13, I think, that gets into the yes vote, no vote. Yeah. Is this article written such that this is a definitive, with the word convey, is that we don't get to take it back. We get to allow good planning, good conversation, complexity with, the state. All those things are smartly done. Does it say more than that? Is it basically this is a vote, which is no, the ship has sailed. Town hall, the power is vested from the people at the town vote to the select board, such that the people don't get a say, with many of the sentiments that are said here that I think are probably going to be multiplied by a great multiplier at town meeting. If you could just answer that. Sure. Has the ship sailed with regard to town hall as a result of Article 13 as it's currently written?
So what Article 13 does is it is town meeting telling the select board that they can sell town hall. The select board need that authority in order to engage in any discussion about the sale of town hall. Right? They can't sell town hall without going through a process, but they need the permission. So, as I said earlier, it is illegal for them to start a conversation.
So allow me to interrupt, just
Sure.
because I respect what you've said and I've tried to pay attention. So I think where I'm looking for is an expansion of that article as it currently exists with regard to empowering the select board. Is there a way to weave the article, amend it on the floor, whatever's necessary, in order to get the outcome that I think possibly has a chance to be passed, which would be you're proceeding, you get the vote to proceed to the discussion, but it's not an absolute such that the select board solely has the ability to execute an agreement, a contract, with regard to a developer or whatever words you want to, put in there.
Right.
That says you don't come back to town hall. Rather, then we're just discussing prices and debt service and a whole bunch of other factors, et cetera. Is there a way to amend that such that we can thread the needle of doing smart planning, intelligent planning, and yet not give away basically the authority that I suspect many people are smart and would authorize an informed decision-making capability, but aren't convinced yet with regard to complexities that they don't understand, and yet we can torpedo numerous ways, and I suspect they will be torpedoed numerous ways with regard to this, that, and everything else, as to why to not proceed because of whatever.
So I will give your question some thought, but to be honest, what I'm hearing you say is, can we say that they're entitled to sell it, but they need to come back to us again in the fall and get a second vote before they sell it? And I can tell you that's
a
right,
deal breaker.
It is.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
illegal.
Yeah, so that's where I'm trying to thread the needle even finer. If there's ways to put parameters around that with regard to the financial equations, or some creative way with regard to threading that needle, I think that would be extremely worthwhile and worth several hours of time with regard to crafting language, because if that language isn't presented, then I suspect I know the outcome of the vote, and I'm not necessarily in favor of the outcome of that vote. But I don't know how else to convey it in 5 minutes here to try to,
No, I appreciate the sentiment, and you've given me something to think about.
Okay, good. Other aspects, because some of you know, I'm advocating for a larger role at the town meeting by FinCom. I think FinCom needs not to be eligible to discuss, but we need a solid 10, 15 minutes FinCom presentation of complex topics like debt service. We've heard it earlier on the floor here. We've heard it in relation to Shaker Lane as part of the calculation down as to which debt service components are going to come off in the next years before the new one for Shaker Lane, should it be passed, goes forward. And those are complexities with regard to, I think they need to be laid out on a schedule and spoken of in concise, clear terms in order to understand. Because I'll use Amy. She was one who's speaking about all the buildings that, Jim, you put up on the board, and that's very, very helpful. But we need to understand as things are going on, what's coming off, to understand and be informed with regard to the dollars that are potentially there. Other aspects that I think we need more, and I suspect we're not going to have them between now and May 6th. But again, I thank you for doing what you've done tonight. I just think it's too few. And that would be the history of affordable housing. I have tiny pieces of information. I have MBTA, I have 550 King Street. But I don't understand them in terms of volumes. And Mark just introduced, you need 40 in order to have another property that's eligible. Again, I'm trying to hang in there. I'm trying to grab on to understand so that my voice can be used with other voices to inform and educate each other as we bandy it about. But without the information is power. And if I don't have that, I can't have a meaningful conversation. So that's one. I think that'd be helpful. And by that, I mean what's existing, what's committed or planned with regard to 550, where are we ramping up, where are we ramping down, versus what you did a great job of the age factors and all. That was all terrific, but real Littleton specific inventory and what's on the table would be helpful. Another slide, don't need to show it. This building, from an age standpoint, and the assessment with regard to its frailties and all its challenges. I'm very heavily involved with Shaker Lane. That building, in fact, I think they haven't done enough, and I've told them since Thanksgiving, you need to show us all the warts instead of showing us how nice it is and what you've done with the problems that you have. You need to show us where it's really lacking. That, I know, Jim, that was not a total lacking in terms of the assessment, but it showed some of the bigger things that are missing. And I find myself, as I suspect a number of people have already said, people are comparing. They're comparing with regard to this priority versus that priority. You've already given us the 32 point, and I thank you for the dollar figures, because that's an obvious one. We need it. But I also know if we're looking at 26,000 square feet, the Shaker Lane model, before you do in the MSBA subsidy, money, you're basically looking at $1 million per 1,000 square feet. So if you're looking at, and I don't know, another part that I don't know is the cost per 1,000 square feet of a school building in any relation to a housing, or a housing for town hall and the different, components. But those are pieces that I feel like if we're going to talk about dire need, which I think it is dire need. So I'll just say that. I'm moved by those sorts of things. How many of us are living in stuff that hasn't been updated since the 1950s? I don't think, not many. But I need that info, I need those comparisons, or I need some summary perspective with regard to this one's really much worse and show me how it's much worse. I think that's adequate, so thank you for your time. But thank you for doing this. I genuinely appreciate it.
Some of you know me. I didn't say my name before. I apologize for that. My name's Sandy Clyde. I live on 12 Wanalita Trail. And like I said before, I've only lived here 40 years. So, but there's a couple of things. Rumor has it that Shattuck Street housing, which I believe is affordable housing, has about 19 units open. So why isn't that being filled before we put in more housing? Yes, I know, Mr. Duggan, that you're going to tell me it's going to take at least 5 years, but that's okay. The other part that I was thinking about, and what popped into my head, which is kind of bizarre, earthquakes and hurricanes and bad weather. Well, that 1922 building withstood a 1938 hurricane that took out a lot of stuff, and nothing happened to it. This building has been updated, so please stop doing doom and gloom that this building is going to fall down at any moment, because it is not. It is withstanding. We have had earthquakes here. We just had an earthquake last month. And I don't even know, did any of you who work in this building feel it?
Yeah.
Well, Marion, you're on the first floor. You're right here.
I was with Rob. We were in my office.
Third floor, felt it right away.
Okay, so, but it wasn't make you get up and run out of the building, did it?
Not much.
Okay, so there's my point. So please, don't throw that at people. You're going to panic them thinking it's going to fall apart if we have a hurricane or if we have an earthquake. It's not, because I believe it used to be a shelter at one point where if there was major weather, this is where you came. And so that's not an easy situation for us who have known that to swallow. Mr. Harrington, you said that we will have another vote at town meeting when it comes up to money. Well, being at many, many town meetings, what usually happens when it comes up for a second vote, well, we've already done this much work, so we really should move forward with it because we've already done this. And it would be a waste of time for us not to move forward. Am I wrong?
Are you asking me to answer the question?
Yeah.
So I would say that can be a reason to continue on, but I also have great faith in town meeting to make the best decision they can at each instance. You as an example.
But for the most part, I usually vote no at those, just for my point of view here. That just because we spent $1 million on all these studies, it doesn't mean we should spend $50 million to finish the project. And this is where I'm heading with this question. We know when it goes back to town meeting that the same people don't always show up that voted no because they thought it was a done deal, and now it is at town meeting again. So this part could be pushed off for at least another year before doing anything. Again, we're in a situation where everything is in flux, and now you're throwing something else at us. And for the most of us, which in 9 months, I'm going to be that 65-year-old. I want to stay in my home. I've bought my home, paid it off, and I do not want to move. When I moved in there, I plan on dying there. So, if you guys are so dead set for this building to be torn down and...
No, we didn't say that to torn down.
Well,
No.
torn down for housing to be built because you said that this building needs
did
work.
not say torn down. Absolutely not. Did not come out of my mouth.
You're right, it didn't. I apologize. But the assumption is that it will be, because at that March 24th meeting, you said, Mr. Duggan, that you don't know if the builder will stay in this footprint or tear it down and put a garage underneath to fit the cars.
Correct. That was a speculation, just like other speculations. The what ifs have been presented throughout the evening, and that's a what if. So it's there is great respect for our local historical commission, and as thinking optimistically, as we move forward, they will have there will be absolutely expectations that will be mandated, delivered to the historical commission, such as the cost benefit in terms of redoing the existing building, keeping it as is, and turning the 40 units here, and using those different tax credits, one that the chairwoman had discussed, then or raising this building, first time I said it, and building new still using the historical tax credits and the low-income housing tax credits. And that, what, no?
You can't use the historical for new construction.
Yeah, you can't.
For renovation only.
Okay, I'm getting mixed messages because when I had questioned the chairwoman with the new construction, she confirmed it.
Okay, so
I'm wrong. Okay, I'm sorry.
we have some wonderful examples of former school buildings that were renovated with a combination of low-income housing tax credits and preservation tax credits that involved new construction adjacent to those buildings. So the building itself was preserved, and in addition, there was new construction done on the site to perhaps expand the building, make more units available, et cetera. In a case like that, then yes, you may use a combination of historic preservation tax credits and low-income housing tax credits. But there has to be a preservation angle to low-income housing tax credits. That's actually statutory.
Thank you. Yeah, and I did know that because I grew up in Westford, and the school that I went to, elementary school I went to, is now seniors. It wasn't safe for the kids, but it's great for the seniors. So anyway, I'm really begging that this does not go in front of this town meeting. I know it will be because it's on the warrant, but you will get a lot of pushback from what I've heard. But I've also heard from a lot of people that they haven't heard about it until I've said something. So that concerns me, that it's not, because I really haven't seen it on Facebook either, and I'm not on a lot of the pages, but it's a lot of seniors who haven't seen it. So has it been in the, what's the newsletter that goes out?
Yes.
The broadcaster?
It's in the broadcaster.
Yeah, okay.
It's in our town newsletter. It's we have talked about it. Clearly, it's at the select board meetings. We did the info. I did something on local on LCTV with notifying everybody about this. We've reached out to local press to stimulate anything in the Lowell Sun, anything else like that. We are absolutely making every effort to use social media outreach efforts to get the word out for tonight and moving forward. We'll have a queue. There's going to be, I was saving the best for last. There is going to be a podcast 2 weeks from tomorrow regarding this. That the vice chairwoman does that, and we're also, there was one other thing, I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought.
That's right.
But we are making every effort to educate people. Oh, a question and answer. So there's questions and answers. They're already on the website as of today on the select board page, on the town administrator page, and the planning board page. So there's a number of different questions and answers. And we've also done I've asked that the alerts has been done through IT regarding this also. So we're making every effort, and without a doubt. But
Thank you.
Thank you.
There was one other thought. See, you made me.
Say, I know. It's catchy.
Thanks.
Just to address Ron's question about 2 votes, is this somewhat similar to the conversation with the Orchard? Is once you vote to declare it surplus, right, you then sort of so the concern was at town meeting, if the town votes to declare the Orchard surplus, people were concerned that they would have no control and input over who would either purchase or lease the land, which is why we had put a memorandum of understanding in place talking about the RFP process and involving the community, right? Remember we signed that? Yeah, we did. You guys did. So I guess that's the same concern. That's the same concern, right? That people had with the Orchard, that if you vote yes, you then lose some level of control.
Some level. I don't know if it's all the way, but yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to thread the needle to still retain something.
Okay. And so I'd also like to say, seniors don't necessarily, maybe you all are super savvy, but seniors generally don't listen to podcasts. They're not reading newsletters. They're not online. They're not checking the town website.
Can I defer to them, please? Do you do that? Yes, of course they do.
And we talk to one another all the time about what's being said. I talked to Dad at the ladies' breakfast this morning, the room was full.
Yep, but that's
It's been talked about a lot.
yeah.
Yes.
But you have to know about it so that you can talk to your friends.
And it has been in the broadcaster ever since, and I was involved in the first meeting that our town administrator held and presented this and brought a quote. And I immediately took it to the rest of the board. It is in the COA board's meeting for March, and you're going to see it be addressed this coming Monday. And people have been alerted to that. Have you read the town newsletter yet?
I do get it, and I do read it occasionally.
Please
Yep.
read page 2 where he put a good explanation of this in there for people to read. So a lot of effort has gone into trying to get the word out in a society where we don't have newspapers to take articles.
Yeah, it's a shame we don't have a town newspaper anymore.
Right. Well, we're working on that too.
Yeah, so,
Can I just, you had mentioned earlier about you compared it with the RFP process with the experience recently. And there were lessons clearly learned, and I don't mean to speak.
yeah, and I don't make this about the Orchard. I'm
Okay.
just saying, I think that was the people's concern at town meeting about the Orchard, and this may be people's concern now.
Okay, I want to address the concern that and the fact that lessons were learned as a result of that, and the select board would absolutely approach it in a very transparent and looking to solicit input as the RFP would be developed, and highlighting those conditions and taking those into consideration before anything is put out there as advertised.
Okay.
Okay.
Does anyone know where we are with, so 10% of our housing has to be low-income housing. Where are we now?
It's not low income, it's affordable, which is a big difference.
Okay, so does anyone know where we are right now with that housing stock?
We're over 10%.
What's 12%?
11.2, I believe.
Okay, and how much of it is deeply discounted?
Zero.
Okay. And the units that are going in at IBM and at the train station, how many are supposed to be affordable or deeply discounted?
There are no units proposed near the train station. There are 10% total of the units of any development are required to be affordable at 80% AMI.
So I guess what you're saying is like we all knew we had this need, but we didn't take the opportunity then and there to do something about it. So what she's saying is we're building apartments at IBM and we're building apartments at the train station, correct?
No.
I guess I'm not quite understanding the question.
So my understanding is that the IBM is going to be redeveloped and there's going to be apartments there, correct?
Correct.
And there's going to be redevelopment at the train station and there's going to be...
Possibly. There's no proposal for redevelopment.
Rezoning. Okay. So we're going to have apartments at IBM and we didn't... And help me, and I don't know, I really don't know.
The town adopted an inclusionary zoning bylaw that requires 10% of the units to be affordable at 80% AMI. The town took that proactive step because we understood the need for the affordable housing. I think we need to do a better job of showing the difference between the deeply affordable that's proposed now and the affordable units that can be developed as part of a market rate apartment development.
Okay. And can you help me understand what the threshold limits are between affordable and deeply affordable?
Yep, that was Judy's slide. That one.
And if I didn't put my glasses off my face. So we're only showing 1- and 2-person households because we're talking about senior housing.
Yep.
The 80% of area median income, which is what your inclusionary zoning and every town in the Commonwealth that has inclusionary zoning uses. For a household of 2, the maximum income is $105,850. So that's, figure out, divide that by 12, multiply that by 0.30, and you can come up with the maximum rent that household can pay. You can probably appreciate that for the household that's at 39.7, it's
nothing. It's
much lower. It's much lower income. So, that's where you can't build that kind of housing without subsidy. It just isn't possible.
No, I understand.
Okay.
I understand. So I guess my next question is, if we have these apartments going in at IBM, and I understand they weren't marked as extremely low income housing because that would require a lot of subsidies, why didn't we make some of it very low income or low income apartments? Or did we? I don't know. I really don't.
We did. 10% are going to be low income, right, Mark?
Well, 10%. Yeah, and at this point, rehashing the planning board's decision from 3 years ago and then again from this year, I don't think that's moving us forward at all.
No, I'm just looking
I would like to understand from the rest of the people here what other questions that you have, what other information we can help share to help move this forward.
Yeah, I think understanding the broader inventory that we have is important.
Yeah.
But I understand. And so several months ago, I think a newsletter came out, maybe from Jim, that's formally said, like, there's no formal discussions have been made about moving town hall, because I guess there are all these rumors. But not so long ago, you just said that, like, we've been talking about it for years. Like, I don't understand, like...
Informally, it has absolutely been discussed. But in regards to actually, there are steps that need to be taken legally in which we're proposing through that RFP process to identify the correct person. And if it's the developer of 550 King Street, it's the developer of 550 King Street. Now let's also remember that you had said something about a subsidy to Mr. Lapoli because he's wealthy enough. So the partner, because getting back to the low-income housing tax credit process, all right, Mr. Lapoli does not have that experience. He has to partner with an experienced, seasoned, successful
Nonprofit.
affordable housing developer. And part of that process includes the management plan on the daily maintenance, on the snow removal, on a number of different things. That goes through some serious scrutiny and evaluation. If it was just Mr. Lapoli, they would hand him back the application and say, go bring a partner that with some credibility here for this component of it. He knows how to do other, but not that stuff with the management plan. Okay?
Thank you.
Okay. Sure.
I know I'm preaching to, but we have 3 select board people, Jim here, and so many of you are here too. I just want to make a point keying off what Amy said. If I captured the data you presented earlier, there was a 2017 study and then there was a 2021 needs assessment. I know that many of these people worked very, very hard with regard to the library done in 2019 and the center on Shattuck Street in 2022. I don't know the planning timelines for those things. What I am trying to take 2 minutes of your time to point out is this is where I'm at from a finance standpoint, or for Jim or the select board, but the people I think are presenting statements with regard to the pain, the hurting, the sacrifices, and it's all a matter of balancing priorities. And information is power. And the lack of information, like what studies are underway right now? Somebody mentioned the DPW, and I agree, it's woefully needed, et cetera. But if you don't have a context over a 10-year timeline, then we're in these one-off situations that it just doesn't seem fair to you who are working so hard for us. It doesn't seem fair to us who are presented with seemingly little time to understand these complex situations. So thanks.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want everyone to clearly understand what is driving this conversation and these votes is not the need for a new town hall. Absolutely not. It is the need, and it's the right thing to do, and for the deeply affordable senior housing. We have 0 in this community, and would this be a good location? Absolutely. Does it provide us the opportunity to partner with someone with identifying for town hall to relocate? Absolutely. But the main priority here is the deeply affordable senior housing. I also want to explain that there is a lot left in this process. There's meetings, there's transparency, there is further data, there is studies, there's financial evaluation, there's financial analysis, there's forecasting, there's looking at, as what you had said, Mr. Rounds, the debt that is falling off and anything like that. It is our plan, and we will make sure, and to Amy's point, we'll be within the levy. We are not going to go back to the taxpayer when in point it comes and it says, we need a debt exclusion. That's not going to be the case here. And we will and the select board and through town council we'll put in every safeguard we possibly can to make sure that we are protected, that nothing happens without the agreement, and the select board is driving that message home, and they're driving the process, and I have complete 100% faith in the select board it's going to be done the right way for everybody's best interest. Mr. Sanderson? Sanders, I'm sorry.
That's all right. Not a problem. Mr. Moderator, question. If the voters vote this through in May, you said that we will likely be in this building here for 3 or 4 years down the road.
4+.
4 plus, okay. And they're saying anywhere from 18 months to 3 years with this legislation getting through.
The timeline, that the real back of the envelope stuff, we're looking, it would be aggressive for us to get through with through the state legislature within 12 months. It's likelihood it'll go further than that. But during that time, that's when the planning component, the outreach efforts, the input from the town, from the residents of what that RFP would look like. And then the tax credit process for the developers. That process, as I explained, if someone was to, right now they are running 18 months behind for anyone that has been put in, that has made the submission. And so we're at this point, if we were to do it tomorrow, we're already 18 months behind. And then for it to be recognized and then go through the review process. So we are looking at a long process here. Okay.
I know it's a long process. There's no ifs and buts about that. That's the way the state operates. My second question was, is there any talk based on the fact, if this goes through, that when there's a possibility of this shell at 550 would start being built, is there any speculation as to when that would take place?
Well, that would, first of all, we would want to understand the degree of a building. Do we want the shell with the mechanicals in it, or do we want a turnkey or anything in between? So, and that is part of the process as through the select board in identifying those particular conditions, and also working with the finance committee in making sure that the affordability factor.
Well, if the developer, gave us a town hall with walls and everything's in it, and all we had to do was move in.
Right.
That's the cost that we're talking about. I talked to Steve Nugent, and he said that you're looking at probably maybe 10 years that the town would have debt for that completion of what, beside what he gives us and what we would have to complete. So if we're asking for a complete, then that means that we're asking to pay for that. We would be asked to pay for that?
Depending upon, because we're having...
likelihood, we would have... It's not going to...
Right, it's not going to be... Correct. There will be dependent upon, obviously, there's a value on this site, on this location right here. So it's really a matter of numbers at that point.
Yeah.
But to your point, the debt on that's within our operating budget. We would pay that debt. It would not be requested of the town, of the residents.
Outside the levy there, yeah. I just think that at this point in time, there's so much being thrown in the mix, and it's just a lot of money that. Well, I can say this much. I'm thankful that Littleton is in the position that so far, based on what we have now and what we're talking about now, that we can pay for it. That's
Absolutely.
that's very important to us as taxpayers. And that the biggest thing is, of course, the school, and we know that is outside the levy, that's going to take place. But we still have a lot of debt in-house, but we don't have a lot of debt as it stands right now in terms of what's going to be paid off pretty soon.
Right.
So we're going to go back up in debt, but I'm thankful that Littleton can afford to handle it.
And let's also, one thing that hasn't been discussed or hasn't been brought up here, and I don't want to exasperate anything, but we're still, what is moving forward is the development of 550 King Street. We are at a fortunate position that we have a 38-acre parcel that I know communities would absolutely write off 495, that absolutely communities would love to be able to have the opportunity to develop. I mean, as I talk to my peers throughout the state, this is a major project that people know about it across the state. So as the value of that parcel stands today, it's a value of $38 million. Fully built out, it's over $250 million in value. That doesn't include the room tax, the meals tax, the different the inspectional fees. That doesn't include a number of different areas of there, and that's being conservative. So we have a great opportunity here, but it's also, that's a parallel track to the senior affordable housing. That's important to us. And that's our goal here, is to be able to provide that for our seniors. As you heard Judy say, we don't have it in this community. There's none.
Yeah, and I've been all for, the seniors being able.
Yes, you have.
Because we had a lot of seniors had to move out. A lot of them moved out of the town here because they didn't have that. And I think that this is a good opportunity, for us to do. And I guess that's just the breaks of the games with some things, you can't do A without doing B, and you can't get C done until you get A and B done. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you very, very much. I appreciate everyone's input, questions, concerns. Absolutely fantastic. Madam Vice Chairwoman, Mr. DeCoste, Mr. Chairman, do you have any final words or anything? Okay.
Thank you for coming.
Yes, no, thank you very, very much for your time, and appreciate it, and thank you everybody for the team for being here and doing a great job. Have a super night and be safe. Thank you very much.
So, we probably can help you with